I was only supposed to fix her faucet. That was the whole thing. 10 minutes, maybe 15. Then I'd be back in my apartment, reheating pizza and pretending I wasn't checking if she passed by the window again. But then she opened the door barefoot. Not seductive, just casual. Loose sweater, sleeves pushed up. Her hair still damp like she'd been in the shower too long. I caught myself standing there, toolbox in hand, not moving. "You said you're good with plumbing, right?" she asked. I nodded, and that was the first lie. I wasn't good, I just offered. Her name's Lena. She lives 2 floors above me. We've exchanged nods in the elevator, the occasional package handed off. Nothing more. I didn't know her voice sounded like that up close. Low, a little husky, like it had been quiet for too long. Her place smelled like eucalyptus and old wood. She had one lamp on in the corner, no music, no TV. Just the drip-drip from the sink and my heartbeat going dumb in my chest. "It's in here," she said, motioning to the kitchen. "I would have called someone, but you were quicker." She gave a quick smile, then turned, already halfway down the hall. She didn't wait to see if I followed. She just knew I would. I worked in silence, wrench in hand, sweat gathering under my collar. The pipe was old, like it had been ignored for years. Kind of like her place, beautiful but worn. There was dust in corners, a teacup still full beside the stove. She leaned against the counter, arms folded. Watching, not talking, not helping. "You always help neighbors?" she asked finally. "Just the interesting ones?" I said before I could stop myself. Her eyebrow twitched. Amused or annoyed? I couldn't tell. "I'm 10 years too old to be interesting to you." I didn't reply. She shifted, pulled her sleeves down like she'd said too much, like she'd cracked open the door to something neither of us had permission to step through. Then, just as I tightened the last bolt, she asked it, "Do you live alone?" I froze, my hand still on the pipe. The air felt heavier suddenly, or maybe just more silent. Like the room knew what she was really asking and was waiting for me to answer. I turned my head just slightly. Her eyes didn't move. "Yeah," I said quiet. "Yeah, I do." She looked at me for a long time, like she wasn't seeing me exactly, but measuring something behind my words. Then she stepped closer. Not much, just enough to reach around me and turn off the faucet. The back of her hand brushed mine. Barely. Neither of us moved. "You missed a drop," she said, but her voice didn't sound like it was about the sink. I stood still. The room smelled like steam and something sweet. Maybe her shampoo. Her arm lingered too long by mine. I wanted to turn, to look at her properly, to say something that would make her stay there. But she was already walking away. "Leave the tools," she called over her shoulder. "You might have to come back." I stood alone in her kitchen, holding a wrench like it meant something. And for the first time that night, I realized I hadn't looked at the sink once. I wasn't supposed to be there the next night. But the tools were still in her kitchen, and when she texted, "Think it's still leaking. You around?" I didn't wait long to reply. Didn't even pretend to check my schedule. "Yeah, I'll come up." I told myself I was just being polite. Responsible even, that if the leak wasn't fixed, I should make it right. But I also shaved, changed shirts, spent too long deciding between 2 nearly identical jackets. This time, the front door was cracked open. Inside, her apartment was dimmer than before. She'd lit a candle, just one on the coffee table, flickering low. "It's not the faucet," she said, standing in the doorway to the kitchen. "It's under the cabinet now. You might have to crawl in." I nodded. "Sure." She didn't move, just tilted her head. "You don't ask a lot of questions, do you?" I paused. "You want me to?" "No," she said quickly. "I'm just used to people trying too hard." There was something brittle in her voice, like it might crack if I touched it wrong. I got on my knees, opened the cabinet. Tools clanked against the tile. I could hear her behind me, pacing softly, her bare feet barely brushing the rug. She sighed. You ever feel like fixing things for other people is easier than fixing your own shit? I looked up, forehead hitting the edge of the sink. She laughed, quiet and short. Sorry, she said. Ignore me. Wine makes me existential. I didn't want to ignore her. I didn't want her to pretend I wasn't here for more than just a leak. I ducked back under the sink, but my thoughts stayed on her voice. There was weariness in it. Not just tiredness, history. The kind you carry in your shoulders, in the way you don't quite meet someone's eyes when they get too close. And then I saw it. A photograph tucked behind a stack of cleaning products. Crooked frame. Dust on the glass. Her and a man, arms slung around her waist, his mouth close to her ear. Her smile looked different then. Younger. Lighter. I shut the cabinet a little harder than I meant to. Back on my feet, I didn't ask. But I think she knew what I'd seen. He left in January, she said. Took the records, the espresso machine, and the good towels. I gave her a look. She gave me a crooked smile. You'd be surprised what you miss, she added. Turns out grief is very domestic. I wanted to say something. Instead, I just stood there, awkward in my skin. She moved closer. Sit, she said. You've earned a drink. I hesitated. She already had a glass poured. I sat on the couch. She handed me the wine, then sat, close but not touching. I think I hate being alone, she said, staring into her glass. I swallowed hard. You're not right now. She looked at me. Her hand brushed my arm, brief, deliberate. Just enough. I felt it burn. And then she asked, quieter this time, do you want to stay a little longer? I didn't answer. Not with words. But I didn't stand up either. She had the kind of silence that didn't fill the room. It held it. We sat there on her couch, not quite shoulder to shoulder. The wine was untouched in my hand. Her fingers curled around the stem of her glass but never lifting it. Outside, the streetlights buzzed faintly through the window. One of them flickered every few seconds, like a nervous blink. I stared at it longer than I should have, just to keep from looking at her mouth when she breathed. I used to hate quiet, she said suddenly. Now I don't know how to have a conversation unless it's inside of one. I turned to her, half smiling. That's poetic. It's sad, she said, almost laughing. You'll learn. Eventually. There was that thing again, that echo of something she wasn't saying. Like she knew exactly how young I was, and how dangerous it was to let me think I wasn't. I leaned forward, set the wine down. She turned, slowly, legs tucked under her now. Her sweater had slipped slightly off one shoulder, and I caught myself staring at the curve of her collarbone. Pale, marked faintly by a strap line. I looked away. Too late. You're quiet tonight, she said. I paused, fingers twitching on my knee. I don't know what this is. She didn't pretend to misunderstand. Does it scare you? She asked. I met her eyes. They weren't teasing, just tired, curious. No, I said. Not that. Just, I know I shouldn't be here. Why not? I mean you. I stopped. You're older. You're hurting. You're not mine to want. But I said none of that. I just ran a hand through my hair and sighed like that explained everything. She moved again, slow, deliberate, reached out, and her fingers landed lightly on the inside of my wrist. Just a touch. But it felt like every thought in my head vanished at once. I don't care how old you are, she said. I care that I don't feel like a ghost when you're around. I swallowed. And then the knock. Sharp. 3 short raps at her door. She froze, hand still on my wrist. A second knock. More impatient. She pulled away, fast, almost embarrassed. Her body language shifted, like a curtain dropping over her. Just a sec, she called, standing quickly and adjusting her sweater. She didn't look at me as she walked down the hall. I sat there, heart slamming in my chest, unsure whether to stand or vanish. I heard her voice at the door, muted, unfamiliar tone. A man's voice answered. Low. Too familiar. Didn't think you'd answer, he said. Didn't plan to, she replied. Then quiet again. When she came back, she didn't speak. She just leaned against the doorframe, eyes on me. And then, in barely more than a whisper, would you have stayed if I asked again? She didn't move from the doorway. Just stood there, arms crossed tightly over her chest like she needed the pressure to hold something in. I nodded, slow. Yeah, I would have stayed. Lena looked at me like that answer both surprised and scared her. Then she turned, walked past the couch without sitting, and poured herself another glass of wine. This time she drank it, fast. You shouldn't say that, she said, back still to me. Why not? I asked. Her shoulders lifted in a tight breath. Because I'm not your age. I'm not your fantasy. I don't have time to babysit your confusion. I stood now. I'm not confused. She laughed short, brittle. You don't even know what this is. 1 minute you're fixing my sink, the next you're what? Playing house. I didn't ask for anything, I said, maybe sharper than I meant. You're the one who asked me to stay. And you didn't leave, she fired back. Silence. Hot. Thick. She finally turned to face me. Do you want to know the worst part? She asked. I wanted you to stay, even though I knew I shouldn't. There it was. The room shifted, like something invisible had cracked and let air rush in. She looked at me, really looked, and suddenly she didn't seem older or wiser or untouchable. She just seemed tired and scared. Every man I've ever let in has taken something, she said, voice low. I don't know what's left to give someone like you. I crossed the space slowly, not touching her, just enough to be heard softer. I don't want to take anything. Then what do you want? She asked. Her voice cracked on the last word. I didn't know how to answer. Or maybe I did, and it felt too dangerous to say. I stared at her hands instead. One still clutched the glass. The other hung loose by her side, shaking slightly. You make me feel like I haven't missed everything, I said. Like there's still something here. We stood like that, too close and still not touching. I could hear the fridge humming behind her, my own pulse in my ears. I don't want to hurt you, she whispered. You already haven't, I replied. Another silence, but this one wasn't empty. It was thick with decision. She looked at me, and in her eyes was every war she was fighting with herself. Then she asked, almost inaudible, if I said don't go, would you listen? I opened my mouth, closed it, stepped forward. She didn't back away, not even a little. I didn't kiss her, not yet. The distance between us felt like a held breath, one that could collapse into something real if either of us moved wrong. But then her phone buzzed. Once, then again. She stepped back, barely, eyes flicking toward the kitchen counter. I watched her hesitate before walking over, turning the screen face down without answering. Everything okay? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She didn't answer right away. Then, it's nothing. Just the past being persistent. I let that sit between us, but she didn't turn back around. Instead, she reached into a drawer, pulled something out, small, rectangular. She walked back over and handed it to me. A photo, old, worn at the edges. You probably don't remember, she said quietly. But I do. I stared at it. A classroom, my senior year of high school. A guest speaker standing at the front. Her, younger but not by much. Hair shorter, smile tighter. I used to substitute, she said. Back when I needed the extra money. You were in the back row. You always sat with your headphones half hidden and your jacket zipped up like armor. My stomach tightened. I remember thinking, that boy's got walls no one even tries to climb. I looked up at her, stunned. Why are you telling me this now? Because I didn't know it was you until you stood in my kitchen last night, she said. But once I knew, I couldn't unknow. Everything shifted. All the silences. The way she looked at me. the hesitation in her hands. I wasn't anyone then, I said, voice low. You were angry, she replied. And hurting. I saw it. But no one asked you why. I shook my head slowly. You still shouldn't. I know, she cut in. I shouldn't want this. You shouldn't still be here. But maybe there's something about you I recognized. Something I've been circling back to without realizing. I sat down hard. Like the weight of what she said pulled me down. So many memories came back. Days I skipped class. The emptiness I carried like a secret. And this woman, once just a passing adult, who'd noticed me even then. Quietly. From a distance. How long have you remembered? I asked. She looked away. Since you said your name. I closed my eyes. I didn't plan for this, she added. But you're not that boy anymore. I stood, walked over to her. And you're not that teacher. For the first time, she let her hand rest on my chest. Fingers splayed, hesitant. The air changed again. Heavy with something old and new at once. Before either of us could speak, a voice rang from the hallway outside. A woman's voice. My name. Loud. Searching. I froze. Lena's eyes locked onto mine. Is that? I didn't answer, because I knew exactly who it was. And she shouldn't have been here. Eli? The voice was closer now, just outside Lena's door. She stepped back like she'd been struck. I didn't move. Couldn't. Who is that? Lena asked, voice low but pointed. My friend, I said. Weak. Incomplete. I hated the way it sounded in her space. Next to her glass of wine, her quiet hurt. Your girlfriend? She asked. I didn't answer. Outside, a knock. 3 polite taps. Then the voice again. I saw your name on the buzzer. I've been calling. Can we talk? Lena exhaled sharply through her nose and laughed. Not cruel, but tired. She looked at me like she already knew the answer. Like maybe she always had. You should go, she said. I stepped forward. Lena, Eli. She shook her head. Don't. And just like that, the air between us was cold again. I hated it. I hated that I caused it. That I let something as fragile as comfort bloom here, and now I was the one poisoning it. I didn't move to the door. You want the truth? I asked. No, she said quickly. I want you to go before I let myself ask you to stay again. I nodded, slowly, but my feet stayed planted. She's not serious, I said. Not the way you were just now. Her face tightened. That doesn't make me feel better. I didn't come here thinking any of this would happen. You made me feel seen. She swallowed hard. And now I feel foolish. No, I said. No, please don't say that. Why? She asked, voice rising. So you don't have to feel like the bad guy? I didn't answer. She walked to the window, gripping the frame like it might hold her up. Her back was to me, but I could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her thumb rubbed over her knuckles. You made me think something good could still happen, she whispered. That broke something in me. I crossed the room. Gently, I touched her shoulder. She didn't flinch, but she didn't lean in either. I didn't lie to you, I said. Every word I said here was real. She turned around slowly. Her eyes were red, but dry. You're too young to know what to do with real, she said softly. And I'm too old to pretend I'm okay with maybe. We stood there, breathing the same air, both of us halfway to something. Then I reached into my pocket, pulled out the photo she'd given me. The one from school. I held it out to her. Keep it, I said. I don't want to forget what this felt like, even if it ends here. She looked at the photo in my hand, then at me. Then she said the one thing I wasn't ready for. Come back when you're sure. I nodded and walked to the door. Her silence followed me all the way down the stairs. I didn't see her for a while after that. Not in the elevator. Not on the sidewalk where she always smoked with her headphones in. eyes half closed like she was trying to forget the world existed. The apartment above mine stayed quiet. No packages at her door. No flicker of candlelight in the window. I kept the wrench she let me borrow. Didn't even clean it. Just put it on my desk like it meant something. Like it reminded me I'd been somewhere honest, even for a second. The girl from that night, the one who knocked, who called my name like she had the right, we didn't last. I ended it 2 days later. There wasn't anything to explain. She didn't ask. Some endings come easy when the wrong person's involved. But Lena wasn't wrong. She was just early. 6 months passed. I tried not to count them, but I did. And then one afternoon, I heard a familiar sound. A knock. My door this time. I opened it and there she was. Hair pulled back, sweater sleeves rolled. A small potted plant in her arms like it had been her only excuse to come down. "Peace, Lily," she said. "They're hard to kill." I blinked. "You moved." She shrugged. "Just 1 floor down. I got tired of the stairs." I let her in without asking why she was really there. She walked slowly around my living room like she'd never seen it, like she hadn't lived above it, maybe even listened once or twice through the floor. "You kept the wrench," she said, eyeing it on the bookshelf. "Couldn't throw it out," I said. "It still works." She smiled soft, careful. "So do I." We talked. Not about that night, not right away. But everything else. Music. Coffee. How she finally replaced the faucet herself. The scar on her hand from trying. She laughed when she told me about it. A light, real laugh that made my chest ache. After a while, I asked, "Why now?" She looked at me serious. "Because I wanted to see if you still looked at me the same way." "And?" I asked. Her eyes didn't leave mine. "You do. But now you mean it." We didn't rush anything. This time, no wine. No dim lighting or held breath. Just her legs curled beneath her on my couch. The scent of soil from the plant between us. And the quiet thud of footsteps upstairs. Someone else's life, now. Eventually, she said the thing I'd wanted to hear for months. "You're not a maybe anymore." And I said the one thing I couldn't say back then. "I don't want to fix you. I just want to be where you are." She leaned over. Kissed me slow, not sweet. Real. Like something long overdue. We crossed the line. But we made a life there. Not perfect. Not easy. Just ours. Speech Balloon, did you enjoy the story? Speech Balloon, what kind of stories would you like to hear next? Forbidden romance? Second chances? Or slow burn heartbreaks? Let me know in the comments. I read every one. Red heart.